Welcome to our discussion on fasted versus fed workouts, where we'll dive into the claim that training on an empty stomach magically melts away fat. You've probably heard a friend rave about early morning cardio done without breakfast, or read an article claiming that eating before training ruins fat loss. But is there any truth to those statements? I'll guide you through the physiology behind fat mobilization, fat oxidation, and actual fat loss to help you understand what really happens when you exercise fasted or fed. Along the way, we'll look at performance, muscle retention, and research findings so you can make informed choices about your routine. First, let's set the stage by asking if you're truly burning more fat when you skip your pre-workout meal. Do you drag yourself out of bed for morning cardio without breakfast because you've heard it burns more fat? Are you worried that having a small meal before training will sabotage your fat loss goals? These questions fuel a lot of debate, but the answers aren't as simple as you might think. In this talk, we'll untangle the physiology behind fat burning and the research comparing fasted and fed workouts. By examining how hormones, fuel stores, and energy balance interact, we'll see whether fasted training lives up to the hype or if it's just another fitness myth. To keep us on track, let's look at the agenda of topics we'll cover today. Here's how we'll break down this topic. First, I'll explain what fat loss really means and why mobilizing fat isn't the same as losing it. We'll then compare fat oxidation with true fat loss, followed by deep dives into fasted and fed training physiology. Next, we'll discuss performance and muscle retention, and look at how cardio and strength training differ in fasted and fed states. We'll examine research comparing fasted and fed interventions, then identify who might benefit from fasted training and who should avoid it. Finally, I'll walk you through a practical decision framework and wrap up with key takeaways and myth busting. Let's start by understanding what fat loss actually entails. When people talk about burning fat, they often confuse three related concepts. First is fat mobilization, the release of fatty acids from stored fat in your adipose tissue. Second is fat oxidation, the process of using those fatty acids as fuel during exercise. Both can occur during a workout, but neither guarantees that you'll be leaner tomorrow. True fat loss happens when you sustain an energy deficit over time, meaning you expend more calories than you consume. It's the sum of days, weeks, and months that matters, not just what happens in a single session. Keeping this in mind prevents us from overestimating the impact of fasted workouts. With these definitions clear, we can explore how fat oxidation differs from fat loss and why the two are often confused. Fasted cardio does increase fat oxidation in the short term. Low insulin and high adrenaline levels trigger your body to use more fatty acids for fuel during the session. However, research shows that this doesn't necessarily lead to greater weight or fat loss over weeks or months. Total fat reduction is governed by your overall caloric intake and expenditure, training volume, and recovery, not by whether you ate before your workout. Fasted sessions may burn more fat proportionally, but fed sessions often allow you to train harder or longer, increasing total energy expenditure. Studies comparing fasted and fed training interventions find no significant differences in body composition when calories are matched. Understanding this distinction is crucial as we delve into the specific physiology of fasted and fed states. During a fasted workout, your body's hormonal environment shifts. With no recent meal, insulin levels drop and glycogen stores shrink. In response, adrenaline and cortisol surge, signaling adipose triglyceride lipase and hormone-sensitive lipase to break down stored fat. Free fatty acids flood the bloodstream to supply energy. Over repeated sessions, fasted training upregulates genes involved in fat transport, like CD36 and CPT1, and enzymes responsible for Bay oxidation and energy sensing, such as UCP3 and AMPK. These adaptations can improve your muscle's ability to utilize fat. However, this doesn't mean you're losing more fat overall. You're simply burning a different fuel source. Next, let's see what happens when you train after eating. Eating before you exercise changes the hormonal and metabolic landscape. A pre-workout meal raises blood glucose and insulin, topping up your glycogen stores so you can sustain higher intensities and volumes. Feeding also increases the thermic effect of activity, meaning you expend more energy during and after your workout. Additionally, amino acids from your meal support muscle protein synthesis and limit protein breakdown, preserving your lean mass. In other words, being fed can help you train harder, burn more total calories, and protect your muscles. Understanding these advantages sets the stage for discussing how fasted and fed states affect performance and muscle retention. When it comes to performance, the fed state often comes out ahead. For example, during Ramadan, athletes who trained after eating maintained or improved squat and deadlift strength, while those who trained fasted did not see similar gains. Short-term fasting of 24 hours or more can reduce endurance and strength because glycogen stores and hydration levels drop. There is some evidence that habitual fasted training in untrained individuals can stimulate fat adaptation, but results are inconsistent and often modest. In general, having fuel available supports higher training intensity and volume and promotes muscle protein synthesis, making it better for those focused on strength and muscle retention. With performance considered, let's explore the specifics of muscle protein and lean mass. Fasted exercise can increase muscle protein breakdown because your body may turn to amino acids for energy when glycogen is low. Over time, this could lead to loss of lean mass if you don't compensate. However, short fasts of under 24 hours combined with sufficient daily protein intake and resistance training can preserve muscle. Elevated growth hormone and ketone bodies can support protein synthesis. If you prefer training fasted, make sure to consume adequate protein throughout the day and prioritize a meal rich in protein and carbohydrates soon after your workout to support recovery and muscle retention. Understanding these trade-offs helps you decide when fasted or fed training aligns with your goals. Next, we'll compare how fasted cardio and lifting differ. The impact of fasted versus fed training differs depending on the type of exercise. For low to moderate intensity aerobic activity, fat oxidation rates are higher when fasted, and these sessions can improve metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between fuel sources. However, long fasted cardio sessions raise the risk of low blood sugar and dehydration. On the other hand, strength and resistance training rely heavily on glycogen for high-intensity efforts and volume. Training in a fed state supports better performance and muscle maintenance, whereas fasted lifting may compromise strength gains. If you do choose fasted resistance training, be sure to combine it with adequate protein and carbohydrates elsewhere in your diet. After understanding these distinctions, let's look at what research says when comparing fasted and fed protocols. When researchers have pooled data from multiple studies, the consensus is clear. Fasted and fed exercise produce similar changes in weight, fat mass, and lean mass when total energy intake is controlled. While fasted sessions do burn more fat during the workout itself, fed sessions often result in greater overall energy expenditure because you can train harder or longer. Ultimately, the differences in body composition outcomes are negligible over time. This evidence suggests that your nutritional status before a workout is less important than your overall diet and training program. With the science in mind, let's discuss who might actually benefit from fasted training. Fasted training isn't useless, it's just not a magic fat loss tool. Busy individuals who prefer morning workouts and dislike training on a full stomach may find fasted sessions convenient and sustainable. Endurance athletes sometimes incorporate occasional fasted workouts to enhance fat oxidation capacity and metabolic flexibility, though they typically still fuel their key sessions. Some people also pursue fasted training to improve insulin sensitivity or other metabolic health markers, but evidence for these benefits is still emerging. If you fall into one of these categories, fasted training can be a practical option, provided you meet your overall nutritional needs. Now let's highlight who should be cautious or avoid fasted training. Fasted training isn't suitable for everyone. Athletes who require maximal strength, power, or high-intensity output generally benefit more from training with fuel, as glycogen availability drives performance. People prone to hypoglycemia, dizziness, or significant drops in energy may find fasted sessions uncomfortable and potentially dangerous. Those aiming to build or maintain muscle mass should also be cautious because fasted exercise can elevate protein breakdown. Finally, individuals recovering from illness or injury, or those with medical conditions requiring regular meals, should avoid fasting before training. Recognizing these caveats helps you make an informed decision. Up next is a practical framework for deciding whether to train fasted or fed. When deciding between fasted and fed workouts, start with your goal. If fat loss and body composition are your primary objectives, focus on maintaining a caloric deficit and consistent training. Whether you exercise fasted or fed is secondary. Fasted cardio can be a tool if it helps you adhere to your plan, but it won't override the need for an overall energy deficit. If performance and muscle retention are your priorities, fuel your sessions with carbohydrates and protein. Eating before training allows you to push harder and protect lean mass. In both cases, ensure you get adequate protein throughout the day and consider your personal comfort and schedule. With a clear framework in mind, let's wrap up with the key takeaways and myths to watch out for. Let's recap the essentials. Fasted workouts do increase fat oxidation during the session, but when calories are equated, there's little difference in long-term weight or fat loss compared with fed training. Eating before exercise enhances performance, energy expenditure, and muscle preservation, making it the better choice for most strength and hypertrophy goals. Fasted training isn't inherently bad. It may have metabolic benefits for some individuals, but it's not a magic bullet for fat loss. The bigger picture is that consistent training, adequate nutrition, and recovery determine body composition and performance more than meal timing. Don't be swayed by myths that one approach is universally superior. Choose the approach that fits your goals, lifestyle, and personal preference, and stay focused on overall quality of diet and training.